This is Mike McDonald from Junior Gone Wild. You're listening to the Northern Report.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to the Northern Report. I am your host, Sean Burns, and I'm coming right at you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Here on the Northern Report, I'm shining a light on emerging and existing Canadian talent, as well as some of the legends we're still lucky to have with us. My guest on today's show is Canadian alt-country and cowpunk pioneer Mike McDonald from the Edmonton, Alberta-based legends Junior Gone Wild. I had never really had a real conversation with Mike, and he's got a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a sharp edge. But we had a great chat, and I really appreciate him taking the time to join us, telling me and telling all of us the backstory, the history of Junior Gone Wild, and all about their new record, Still Got the Jacket, that comes out this Friday, November 12th. Speaking of new releases, a favorite of Boots and Saddle, my weekly radio program on CKUW 95.9 FM, Jake Vadeland from the beautiful province of Saskatchewan has a new EP coming on Wednesday, November 10th called No More Pain in My Heart. Jake released a great EP called Retro Man back in the summer that I've really been enjoying. And he's among a young crop of Canadian musicians in the roots music community. I also look to Nicholas Campbell out in Peterborough, Ontario. He has a great record that he put out back in February, I think, called Livin' and Other Western Ideas. And I mention these young fellas because I did a little feature on them for my next column in the Honky-Tonk Times. You can read the Honky-Tonk Times online these days, as I understand. But of course, you want to get the hard copy paper mailed to your door. You can do so by going to the honkytonktimes.com, get yourself a subscription, or pick one up at the Ernest Tubb Record Shop in Nashville, Tennessee. So look for my feature on those young guns, Jake Vadeland and Nicholas Campbell, in my next column of the Northern Report. Thanks to all the folks who came out and caught Sean Burns and Lost Country on the gig this past weekend. A distinguishable difference between a show and a gig, and we were gigging in the trenches, and it was great to play 5 sets of country music this past weekend with Grant and Joanna and John. And that's all I got for you right now, I think, folks. Nothing in store, nothing to report about future Northern Report episodes. I've got some feelers out there hoping to secure some more interesting guests and conversations in the near future. In the meantime, sit tight. Mike McDonald from Junior Gone Wild and I had a great conversation, and here it is right now, Mike McDonald on the Northern Report. From 1983 to 1995, Junior Gone Wild helped introduce Canada to a new musical sound. Credited with innovating the alt-country genre dubbed Cowpunk, over the course of 5 acclaimed albums, this Edmonton, Alberta-based band fused elements of folk and rock with a punk attitude while building a devoted fan base through their epic live shows. For that initial 12-year run, Junior Gone Wild would hone its own version of alt-country on albums that have become cornerstones of Canadian music culture. Less art, more pop, Folk You, Too Dumb to Quit, Pull the Goalie, and Simple Little Wish. Still fronted by the immediately recognizable vocals of Mike McDonald and stylings of lead guitarist Steve Loree and bassist Dave Dove Brown, the group's newest addition is McDonald's nephew, Quinton Herbert, on the drums. After a reunion concert in 2013, the band began thinking about a new album, reflective of all they've learned and experienced over a lifetime in the music business. The result is Still Got the Jacket, a 16-track album due out on November 12th that makes it clear the band's chemistry still thrives and continues to be steeped in twangy rock and melodic country punk. Mark Twain once famously said, "Politicians, old buildings, and prostitutes become respectable with age." He never got a chance to consider whether rock and roll musicians do as well, although most would likely prefer to retain their youthful glory. Somehow, against all odds, Junior Gone Wild has done that with Still Got the Jacket, and in the process have reminded us all what alt country really means. To be truly groundbreaking as a songwriter is a tremendous accomplishment, and Mike McDonald is without question one of our nation's best. His first foray into the music industry was in the spring of 1979 when he was just 16. Certainly a local hero in Edmonton, among other things, he discovered the legendary Spartans Men Club, hosted the Rose Bowl Jam for 15 years, and started the nationally known and still running Hair of the Dog Saturday afternoon gig at the Black Dog Free House. In the late 90s, he put together the Mike McDonald Band, which released an album and commanded an enthusiastic Alberta-based following. Unadorned by electric chaos of a band and massive volume, Mike's solo show is edgy folk peppered with story and commentary, often hilarious. He is a true alternative to affected bombast and disingenuous self-aggrandizing. Mike McDonald is the real deal. It was a pleasure to catch up with Mike on the phone a few weeks back to discuss his journey and all things Junior Gone Wild.
Hello.
Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Thanks very much for making the time here today.
Not at all.
How was the shows this weekend?
Oh, they were great. We put a new show together, and we're kind of working out the kinks, and that went well. And despite the fact Jason Kenney moved the goalposts and again, and we couldn't have the amount of people we wanted to at a couple of the shows. The few people that were allowed to be there were fantastic to play to. So while it could have gone better fiscally, artistically, it was a smashing success.
What's the deal right now out there for capacity restrictions and stuff like that?
Well, two of the shows were outdoor shows, and that was limited to 20 people.
Holy shit, man. That's tough to make a go.
Yeah, we could only get 20 people's worth of money.
Got to charge them 100 each.
But they were, excellent to play to. I mean, intimate shows, there's nothing quite like them when you only got a couple people and you're doing your whole thing.
And you guys, you're famous for being able to rev up a room. Like, is that tough when you're dealing with a limited group of folks, or are you still able to just dig in like you're famous for?
Well, I imagine if there's a lot of people jumping up and down, there's a little bit more energy or oomph. Mm-hmm. But we rehearse the songs at the same level that we play them live. Like that, we kind of have, like, Dove and I are a lot older now.
Yeah.
So we got to stay in shape. So when we rehearse, we're rehearsing full bore, right? Like no chilling out at rehearsal.
Yeah, it's all business.
You got to keep. It's a physical thing these days, right? You got to stay in shape for it. Because the last thing you want to do is to run out of wind in the middle of a long set. Absolutely. You're letting your audience down.
So, like, you're synonymous with Edmonton, at least in my mind. Is that where you grew up?
No, my dad was in the Army. I lived all over the place, but we ended up in Edmonton when I was about 15 or something.
What was it like there when you landed in Edmonton?
Well, I remember the first day I came here, it was winter and it was 30 below zero. So
Where'd you come from?
We were, our last posting was on the Queen Charlotte Islands in a little town called Masset.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful there. But we came back to civilization in Edmonton because we had lived in Edmonton before we went to Masset, and Edmonton just seemed like a good place to come.
Were you already playing guitar or writing songs at that point?
No. I ended up going to Archbishop O'Leary High School, where I met Steve Loree, who introduced me to Anthony Fulmus, who introduced me to Ed Dobeck, Sparky the Happy Troll, and that's we also met a guy named Scott Juskew and Dennis Leonarduzzi, and that was our first punk rock band.
Which band is that?
We were called Joey Did and the Necrophiliacs.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because digging around, I see that name, and then I guess did that band become the Malibu Kens? That's a great name
Yeah,
too.
yeah, we evolved into the Malibu Kens because we started getting into more '60s music. We were the worst band in the world too. We couldn't play worse shit, but we did every '60s song. But whenever you see a '60s compilation record, us Malibu Ken guys can sit there going, "Oh, we did that one, we did that one, we did that one."
And you're just high school kids at this point.
Yeah, yeah, grade 10, grade 11, something like that.
So who are your favorite bands in those days when you're starting to play and in the band?
Well, when the punk bands I got into really heavily when I was that age were bands like the Buzzcocks and well, the Sex Pistols obviously is what
Hmm.
brought us into it because it was they were in the paper and shit. That's where we all checked them out because we read about them in the paper.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard them, I didn't even like it. I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
But
But as I continually exposed myself to it, I started to clue into what was going on there. And then the Buzzcocks and of course the Clash. But my favorite band, I think, when I was 16 years old, was the Stiff Little Fingers.
yeah, I mean, it must have been an exciting time because that music was so vastly different than what everything else that was going on when it made the scene and got to Edmonton.
Yeah, well, we all were like my friends and stuff, Pink Floyd fans, and that kind of stuff. We listened to a lot of arena rock because that's what was available.
Mm-hmm.
And then punk rock comes along, like the Ramones, for example. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
holy shit. There's more to life than Peter Frampton. Holy shit.
So were the Malibu Kens doing gigs around town or in like halls or all ages shows?
Yeah, just like, every city had their punk scene. Ours was no different, and the stories are probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
Punk was new, and the straight people didn't like it, so it was hard to find venues to go do your thing in. So you were reduced to renting hall parties, and usually you could only rent the hall once because they'd figure out what you're up to and they won't rent to you again.
Yeah. So who are some of the other local acts of note back down the scene then?
Well, the band that made me decide to pursue music seriously was called the Modern Minds, and Mo Berg from Pursuit of Happiness was in that band, and that was they're kind of known as Edmonton's first punk band. I put punk in quotations because we could argue all day long about where the exact beginning was, but for us, there was about 50 people in the scene or whatever. The Modern Minds were the band. There was another band called the Rock and Roll Bitches
Yeah.
around, and then there was us, and Dan and Paul Saloter were in a band called the Diefenbakers, and that was kind of Edmonton's punk scene for until other bands and other people started coming in, and it was quite a small scene at the time.
This is like late 70s into the early mid 80s.
Yeah, pretty much, and then of course around 83, 84 is when Junior Gone Wild and SNFU started to happen.
So was Junior Gone Wild born out of the Malibu Kens, or did that band split and you formed a new act?
Yeah, that band split. Well, they kicked me out, and then I and then I came back in, and then the band imploded or whatever, and I went off on my own and did the Junior Gone Wild thing without any Malibu Ken guys. Although I eventually ended up working with Ed Dobeck again.
He's the original drummer, right?
Well, no, I had a band, Junior Gone Wild, for about a year, and we were based out of St. Albert. And Kim Upright, the drummer of the Modern Minds, as a matter of fact, was the first drummer in Junior Gone Wild.
How does Junior form? Like how did that all happen?
Well, I was not in the Malibu Kens anymore. I was at Rat, which is a bar at the University of Alberta, seeing a band. I can't remember who, and Kim Upright was there with his St. Albert friends. Graham Brown was one of them. He's a musician out
I
of
know.
Vancouver.
Yeah, I know Graham.
And so I talking to Kim, I got nothing to do, blah blah blah. And he goes, "Oh, you got to meet Graham." And I decided to go over to their, because they had a trio going. They had a bass player too, and they invited me to come down and jam with them. And so we started putting songs together, and then we were offered a gig, and we didn't have a band name. So I had Junior Gone Wild in my pocket for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how, that's sort of, we needed a band name for this gig, and I had one, and everyone thought it was okay. So that's why we were called Junior Gone Wild.
Lots of places to play in Edmonton in those days, or like you said, you're just kind of renting halls and hoping for the best?
Well, by then you were still doing hall parties, but there was a couple bars that, the alternative scene got bigger and more metropolitan or whatever. And so some bars would take a chance on it, especially as you probably know, every town has, the low rent bars were willing to do fucking anything to sell beer, right?
Yeah.
So all us punk bands played every dive bar in Canada, whatever. But and also the university started to get alternative and punk bands, underground bands to play on campus.
Mm-hmm. Those would have been pretty good gigs, I bet.
They were excellent. And then a few years later, the breweries came in, and then they started sponsoring bands, and that's when the ascension of the Odds and Moist and shit like that started happening. And the Celtic craze was for a couple of years, and if you weren't doing Pogues music, you didn't get headlining shows at the university.
So how long does it take before Junior Gone Wild is, the band that we've all come to know? Like, you guys at it just locally for a couple of years, or how did that look?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, there wasn't a lot in Edmonton for a while, it seemed. There was Junior Gone Wild and SNFU going on, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why we did shows together sometimes. And the scene wasn't big enough to support two different gigs, you know what I mean? So we'd play together, and everybody would come. And in the 80s, that's what it was like in Edmonton. The lineup, the bills of the shows would be very diverse, and all the bands were trying real hard not to sound like each other and stuff. It was a really cool artistic time, I think. But what was I driving at?
Just like how the band gets rolling and like the band as we know it today.
Oh yeah. So we were doing that for a while, but the band's always been volatile in the way we get along with each other and stuff. So we had kind of broke up one day. And that very day I go home, and then Gubby from SNFU's manager, Gubby, called me and said, "Hey, we're down in LA and they heard your demo. BYO wants to do a record with you. Are you guys interested?" And I was like, holy shit, 10 minutes ago we just broke up. Hang on, I'll call you back. So I call all the guys back, and I go, I know we just split up and everything, but Gub just called and said we can go to LA and make a record. You want to do that?
Really?
And everyone went, oh, okay.
Band's back together. Is that less art, more pop?
Yeah.
So did you guys go down to LA and make it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, we starved. It was weird though. The first time I'd been in the States, really, in palm trees and stuff. We stayed in a warehouse. BYO had their set up in a warehouse. There was a few other businesses in there, but it was an enormous warehouse, and we're in Los Angeles, and they shoot movies everywhere there.
Yeah.
So we show up and we crash in the BYO space, and I wake up in the morning and I walk out into the warehouse, and there's this huge movie thing going on, and first thing I saw when I wake up, and I'm bleary-eyed and tired and culture shocked from like palm trees and stuff, and the first thing I see in the morning is David Carradine walking across in combat clothes drinking a coffee. It was the weirdest thing to wake up to.
I bet, man. You're a long way from home.
But they were shooting POW The Escape or some B movie. But it was a really, really wild first day in the United States.
How long were you guys down there?
A couple weeks.
And had you been
I
in
had to come back to... What's that?
I was going to say, have you been in studios before, or is this your first experience recording?
Oh, no. We've been recording since the Malibu Kens days. No, recording was something we'd been doing since day one. We were well acquainted with it. And I think that's why some producers found us irritating because we had our own fucking ideas, you know.
Yeah, like young, confident guys.
But so yeah, we did the album in LA, and that's what got us known on the Canadian campus scene, and then we did a tour of Canada, and that's how we became not just an Edmonton band.
So you didn't tour until the record came out, which is 86?
Thereabouts, yeah.
So I mean, what was it like being a Western band on the national scene back then? Because typically, like Toronto and in the East, they don't really seem to give too much of a shit about the Western bands.
Well, the industry perhaps, but the audience were great. I mean, Ottawa, I felt the same kind of positive love vibe from the audience as I got in my hometown of Edmonton, right? Like Ottawa reminded me of Edmonton a lot, the way people were.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the industry, like, you know, when you get to managers and agents and things like that, yeah, there's probably a bit of bias towards Eastern Canadian stuff because that's where all the action is, Toronto, right?
Yeah.
But the people you're playing to, they don't give a fuck.
But the campus radio was that fair to say a little bit more powerful of a tool back then than it would be today?
Yeah, well, that was the only way you could get it out to everybody. There was no internet or anything like that, right? There was no emails and no Facebook. So you had to, you know, lick a stamp. And shit. But yeah, so you got to get your records sent and to all the campus stations and the CBC, you know, and the CBC was excellent assistance for everybody because they had Brave New Waves and stuff like that. So they would play new things and they would invite you on to do interviews and things. And they were good to almost every Canadian band that was touring that I know did Brave New Waves.
And did you guys book that first tour yourself, or were you already hooked up with, you know, agents and management and that kind of stuff?
No, it was pretty indie. Gubby from SNFU, the SNFU manager, he booked our first tour. And then I can't remember how it all happened, but eventually we ended up with an agent. We ended up on Feldman's. And we also worked with Teamworks with Frank Weipert. That was a great time.
Were you guys like, what was it like back then? Like, were you going on long tours in those days and then coming home and regrouping or playing a little at home and then going back out, or what, you know, were you?
That's pretty much, that kind of sounds like what we did. Our tours were typically about 6 weeks long. We'd go coast to coast, and we'd do that a couple times a year.
And what kind of rooms you playing?
All kinds, you know. But our tours would be, you know, shit gigs to excellent gigs.
Yeah. I mean,
we'd play smelly taverns. We'd play soft cedar theaters. You know, the big college shows. September was great. There'd be outdoor gigs at 11 in the morning, and then you'd play at night as well. And then maybe also had a gig at a club inside the town or whatever. I remember one time in Winnipeg, we played 3 times in one day. I was so tired.
Where were you guys finding? I mean, I know you mentioned Ottawa was a good one. Where else were you finding, you know, good success outside of Edmonton?
Winnipeg, Toronto, Vancouver,
the big
Montreal.
Centers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we had, because we went out so often, we were staying fresh in people's mind, and we kept coming up with new stuff and all the, you know, our party and reputation and things like that. It all kind of worked over time. So we had loyal followings everywhere we went. The way it's supposed to go, I guess.
Yeah, so it sounds like a Junior Gone Wild is in town, and this is our excuse to really party. And you guys kind of had that reputation.
Yeah, actually, people would tell me they would book time off work when we were coming in, because often we'd end up with a gig on a Wednesday night or something, right?
Yeah.
And so nobody wants to go to work on Thursday after staying up till 4 a.m, jumping up and down. So yeah, people told us they would take take the week off whenever we came
That's
to town.
fucking awesome. And you're doing like you're doing 6-week runs or whatever, and one-nighters all across the board.
Yeah, well, sometimes, sometimes you get 3-nighter, Thursday, the back three, we called it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Those were all right because you got to park for a while and get your laundry done.
Any of those rooms you guys used to play still around?
I don't know. I mean, we went out a couple of years ago out east. All the little bars we used to play at in Ottawa seem to still be around. The Horseshoe Tavern's still there. We played there all the time in Toronto. In Montreal, I'm not sure. I think the Fun Electric still exists, but I don't know if bands play there anymore. I'm not sure.
You guys were embraced by the punk rock community. How about like how about the country fans and sort of the more roots music fans? Did they dig what you guys were doing too in those days?
Pretty much, I think so. The audience always clued in. It was record companies and radio and stuff. They're like, "What kind of band are you anyway?"
Yeah.
and we were actually told, you should pick one. Are you a country band or are you a punk band? Like, pick one. And it's like, well, fuck, no, this is what we are.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring that up too, because the industry is so quick to want to slap some kind of genre label on you guys. You're credited as pioneers of alt country or this cowpunk sound. And I mean, to me, just listening, it would appear that there's just a range of influences among the band and you're just kind of doing what you're doing. So, how did you combat that? Did you just tell them like, fuck off, we're Junior Gone Wild and this is what we're doing?
Well, it was a little more stubborn than that. I don't even think we said fuck off. I think we just continued doing what we do.
Yeah.
Time for a new record, bring in the songs. Oh, half of them are pop rock songs, half of them are country songs.
Right.
We've been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So this new album we got coming up is Nobody Was Around to Bug Us, and once again it's just like the rest, it's sort of half country, half pop rock, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely that sort of power pop influence is really clear, like real catchy, real great melodies in your songs. Have you always written all the songs on your own for the band, or is it collective?
Well, it's collective. The reason I got more songs than everybody else, it's back in the day, the deal was at band practice when we were just starting out, everybody bring a song in next practice. Okay, we all agreed to do that. So we'd come next practice, nobody brought a song in, but I did. Okay, well, we'll learn Mike's song. Okay, next practice, everybody really bring a song in this time. Okay, yeah, sure. And we all show up and nobody brought a song except me. I brought another one. Okay, so we learned Mike. So now we got 2 Mike songs on the set list. And then finally someone else like Dave Lawson or whoever brought a song in. And eventually other guys would bring songs in. But nobody was writing them, I guess, as quickly as I was. Or I was fulfilling the band assignment and nobody was.
What was writing like for you back then? Were you like a wake up in the morning and write guy, or you writing on the road, or?
Yeah, I know it was this sort of all day long thing. I had my coffee table and my notebook and my guitar usually leaning against the couch. And when I didn't have a job, I would just spend all day doing it. No, not intensely songwriting every moment of every day. I would, make coffee, watch TV for a while, but the notebook's sitting there. So every few minutes I'd go and do something on it. I like writing that way, spending a long time just contouring and pondering phrases and whether to use or the and stuff like that. I have fun with that shit.
Still the same approach these days as it was back then for writing?
Yeah, except it takes a lot longer now. That was Steve's bitch. I was taking a long time. We might have had this record out a long time ago, but I was taking forever to write the songs. I was never satisfied with how they were going. And I didn't want to do the, you bring in like 40 songs and hope 10 of them are any good.
Yeah.
I didn't want to spend the time doing that. That's a lot of output. So I just made sure I was behind the songs 100% when I finally brought them to the band. So I wrote about six or something new ones for this record. And it took me 8 years to write them.
Yeah, because you guys, the reunion shows started happening, I guess, 2013, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing you guys on a very informal Thursday night in May of 2013 at the Auditorium Hotel in Nanton. And that was, I guess, you guys are just kind of getting revved back up for those shows. What year did the band disband originally? 95?
Probably something like that. I guess we were, because we were done for 18 years and then we got back together again.
So what was what spurred the breakup? Had the band just run its course, or the scene changed?
Yeah, we kind of deflated. Our manager left the organization, and then our lead guitar player Lance quit, and it was just me, Larry, and Dove left. And we had this gig at McHugh Hall in Calgary opening for She Stole My Beer, so we did it as a 3-piece, and it was a sad end. And we sold the van, split the money, and that was it for 18 years.
No way. So there was no blowout or anything like that. It was that sounds shitty, man.
No, one day we were there, the next day we weren't.
Wow.
And a lot of people told us to, because our last tour wasn't that well attended either. It was kind of a lame tour, but we heard everyone was like, "Oh, we were going to catch you next time."
Oh man, yeah.
And we're like, "Oh well, there wasn't a next time."
And over those years in between the breakup and the reunion, were you guys still in touch, still pals and stuff like that?
No, not really. I didn't see anybody for a long time. I started having kids and I got into the workforce again. Got into working in record stores.
Oh yeah.
And then the whole reunion thing. So we had to reconnect. Well, I would see Larry every now and then, the drummer, and he always wanted to put it back together again. But I didn't see Dove very often, which is weird because we both worked on the same street for a decade and we never ran into each other. It was crazy.
Just living different lives. And I guess you still continue to release some solo stuff and play shows though every now and then?
Yeah, well, right when Junior Gone Wild broke up 25 years ago or whatever, I was still I had enough energy to keep trying to succeed in the music business. So I put together this pop rock band called the Mike McDonald Band, and I gave it a shot, but eventually I ran out of energy for that. And then later on I made a solo, because I do a lot of solo performances, and everybody always wanted a CD from me and I never had one. So I set up a live recording at the Blue Chair Cafe here in Edmonton, and I recorded a bunch of my solo stuff. And so that's my solo stuff that I did in the 18 years.
How does the material for the solo stuff and the approach to it differ from Junior Gone Wild?
Well, it's different when you're writing for a whole band. You got, the Still Got the Jacket, that's the name of our new album. Those songs were all written with Junior Gone Wild in mind. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, okay, Steve's going to do something great on this part. I don't know what it is, but I know I set it up so Steve's got a place to be a genius, right?
Yeah.
But when you're writing without a band in mind, it's like, well, for me, it's mostly way too many fucking words to memorize. You're just showing off your poetry chops when you're doing it solo. But when you're writing for your band, you want to use all the strengths in the band to make the song a real experience for whoever's listening to it.
Did Steve take over for Lance?
Steve was in the band years ago on our Too Dumb to Quit record.
Right. Okay.
And then after him was Chris Smith. And then Lance, because Lance had always been, once we hooked up with Steve, we were making Too Dumb to Quit, and we wanted to have pedal steel on it. And of course, Steve introduces us to Lance, who's a wicked pedal steel player. And so he came and that beautiful pedal steel on our Poets Highway song, that's Lance Loree, man. Like, so later on he was available. I don't know how the hell it worked out, but we got Lance as our lead guitar player. He was in the band for a couple of years, and he played on our Simple Little Wish record.
Poets Highway is probably one of my favorite ones. Did you write that one?
Yeah.
That's a great one, man.
Thanks.
And you guys made this new record at Steve Loree's place. Like, what's it like having a band member in that dual role, as the engineer and the production side?
Well, he's a stern taskmaster. He wants to work and get it done. But he's always been that way. Like, we know him really well. So how Steve is while working is not a shock. And we give back as much as we get to. So anyway, but we were all of singular purpose, like we were united in what we were trying to get done. And so the human aspects of it, well, they should have been maybe more important. We should have been more sympathetic to each other or whatever. For some reason, without talking about it, we decided, fuck that shit. Let's just get the work done.
How long did you guys spend in the studio here for Still Got the Jacket?
We had to do it because the pandemic. It was a little tricky, right? We did it between June and November, so we came down to Nanton a couple times, and then we did also some of it up in Edmonton in our drummer's basement.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because we had a couple guest musicians, and they lived in Edmonton, so instead of them heading all the way south, we brought the recording gear up here and did our overdubs up in Quinton's basement.
Who are the guests?
Raj Nigam, he's a percussionist for the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, but he's also a good buddy of ours. He played percussion on a song called What Can You Do? And also on that song, my son Emmett plays trombone.
Oh, cool.
He was a trombonist, so it's kind of a song that's a little different than the rest of the songs on the record because, well, we have all this percussion and trombone on it, and none of the other songs do. And then we have Pete Laughlin from Tin and the Toad. He's got great range as a singer, so we had him come in for the really hard singing parts.
Nice, yeah. Pete's a great singer.
Well, no, he's got we needed a real high voice in a few spots, and he was able and willing to provide that, and he did an excellent job. And we talked about, I mentioned Larry a couple times. He passed away last year of a heart attack, or a couple of years ago now, and that's why Quinton's our drummer now. But we managed to salvage a drum track for one of the songs. So Larry is actually drumming on the song "Fool's Errand" on the record. So,
that's great. Yeah, he was a great drummer.
No, he was a technician. He was a clock. He was fantastic. So, yeah, and then so when Quinton came in, we told him, don't even try to play like Larry. And Quinton's more of he's like a 22-year-old kid or something, and he's like a punk rock Ringo Starr, which kind of gave us the shot in the arm we needed after the shock of losing Larry.
Yeah. He's your nephew?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, my sister's kid.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he worked real hard on this record, man. He was totally involved. He had great ideas. He did a lot of singing. His drumming, we loved his drumming. And yeah, it was great to have him in the band.
And I mean, so this is 8 years in the making, I guess, since the reunion show, first reunion shows. Had you guys been, working these tunes out in your live show over the years, or was it, in the studio hashing them out together?
I think because of the pandemic and we weren't playing anywhere, I think maybe half the album might be new to people. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the songs we've been playing for a while, Barricades, for example, we released it as a single quite a few years ago, and we re-recorded it for this album. And Fool's Errand is another song we had recorded a while ago, so we redid it. We knew we were going to redo these songs, and that's from those sessions. Fool's Errand, that's where we got Larry's drum track from that and put it on our new album. So we were kind of drumming to a recording of Larry. I mean, we were playing to a recording of Larry's drumming from years ago.
Were the other songs sort of similar, or are you guys trying to record live as a band off the floor?
Well, we did the beds. We grabbed the beds, and then there was we kind of did the guitars separately. I mean, we tried to grab the guitars while we were grabbing the beds, but you know how it is when you're grabbing beds, you're hoping to get good bass and drums.
Yeah, totally.
And then you can build on top of that. And Steve had a recording technique with the guitars. There was lots of like every guitar I played, I kind of played 6 times.
Just trust
so
Steve.
He's got me panned out onto the sides, and his guitar is more or less in the middle. But we both recorded like six tracks of me playing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But it works. It works. It makes it kind of big.
Sounds big. Girl in the Crowd. What a really great song that one is, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, really. It's again like back to the sort of great melody, great catchy tune, and it's, you know, again, is it a pop song or is it a country song? It's a Junior Gone Wild song, and I that's my favorite part about the band.
Thanks. Well, it's good to hear that it's okay to be how we are.
Record comes out on November 12th, and what are you guys releasing this on your own, or are you with a label for this one?
We're with WeWorks Records. That's Art Bergman and the Great Lakes Swimmers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it's a kind of a co-release with Stony Plain Records. Stony Plain is hosting it on their Bandcamp site. Worldwide distribution by IDLA. We did the like old school shop around. We were turned down by a couple labels, and a couple labels were just too busy, and it was weird because of the pandemic too.
Yeah.
And we found we're a older white guitar band, so we're not exactly what everybody's looking for right now, you know.
Yeah.
In a world of the weekend and stuff like that. And but WeWorks took a shot at it. So, and that's very helpful. So we're doing a lot of the legwork and water carrying on our own, but we're getting some good assistance from WeWork, Stony Plain, and IDLA.
And Stony Plain has released a few of your records before as well, right?
Yeah, they Too Dumb to Quit, Pull the Goalie, and Simple Little Wish were Stony Plain records, and it's fun to be back with them too. It's kind of symbolically cool.
Yeah.
Because we got along great with them, and Holger Peterson is a great guy, and it's just nice to have him involved in this as well.
I read somewhere about you having to like buy the masters back for the first record. What's the story there?
Oh, well, the guy who agreed to pay us a lot of money to get back together again, I had decided to take half of that, and I contacted the Stern brothers in Los Angeles from BYO Records, and I asked them how much to buy the masters back for Less Art, More Pop, because I wanted to put it on a CD, because it had never been on CD.
Oh.
And I wanted to preserve it. And so I used half our money to buy the master tapes back, and they literally sent me the master tapes. I thought I'd get the 2-track mix, but no, I got the raw 2-inch tape, 3 huge Ampex 2-inch tapes.
Oh yeah.
So they'd been sitting in a Los Angeles warehouse for a long 20 years or something. So we had to bake them, and we transferred them to digital, and now the tapes are no good no more.
Oh, really, eh?
I still have them as a souvenir, but they've been baked, and so the oxide, I guess a lot of oxide came off after the baking process. But we managed to salvage all the tracks, and we had to remix it. It wasn't a choice to remix it necessarily. It was a necessity because it was delivered to me unmixed.
Oh yeah. And now you can
but we ended up doing a better mix for it.
You can pick it up on CD and vinyl?
Yeah, the vinyl is rare, and it doesn't have everything that the CD does. The vinyl is from 1986, and it's really thin vinyl too. They weren't into 180 gram back then. So the only vinyl available is the original release. When they sent me the masters, there was a whole lot of songs that didn't make it onto the record, and we just remixed the whole thing and we put the whole thing out. So there's like 23 songs or something on the CD of Less Art More Pop, whereas there's only 11 or 12 songs on the LPs. Also, the Canadian LP has got a different track listing than the American LP.
I like that shit though, man. That's great for the collectors and just to kind of confuse people.
Yeah, it confuses the shit out of me, man. I can hardly keep it straight.
You guys still play like a wide range of the material from all the records in your live show these days?
Yeah, well, we try to represent everything. I mean, some songs we like to play more than others, and then there's some songs are easier to play than others and stuff. But you're always thinking of, you know, you got to keep your audience excited and interested. So, and I'm a music fan too, and I love collecting records and going to concerts and stuff. So I try to think about what would I want to see at a show. Like, I know we can't play every single song, but what song should we play? You know?
Yeah.
And so you try to give everybody, because it's nostalgia a lot when you're playing older songs.
Sure.
So you're trying to trigger good memories out of people.
Yeah, and then lay the new ones on them.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing to our new show. I was mindful of that because, you know, we've all done it. The band says, oh, we're going to do our new material. And everyone goes, oh, no,
yeah,
I don't want to hear the fucking new shit. So I tried to mix it up. But, you know, our new stuff is being pretty well received. We don't seem to have the problem of people being restless during the new songs. So
how did these reunion shows in 2013 come about in the first place?
I was working at Megatunes record store, and this guy Frank came in and asked me if I'd be interested in putting the band back together for a big show, and I said absolutely not, because I never thought about it. It'd been 18 years. It was in my past by that time, right?
Yeah,
and the whole you know, the torturous ego thing that I was in back in the junior days, I wasn't really in a hurry to go back there, you know, because I'd finally calmed myself down to realizing I'm just a regular person.
Yeah.
And then, so putting Junior back together, I'd have to go back to being a fucking prick to everybody, basically.
That's kind of in your mind, is to you know, resume that character from the 90s and the 80s.
Yeah, well, you kind of got to be a certain kind of intense all the time, just to be able to do it. And plus, people expect that of you, but you also just to do the job that I created. It's all my own doing, right? I mandated that the lead singer of this band has to be like this, and I happen to be the lead singer, so I had to apply my own rules to myself. So anyhow, he wants us to get the band back together, and I'm like, yeah, you know what it would take for me to do that? Fuck it. I just, you know, I got a son and a daughter now. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So he goes away, but he comes back a couple months later and he goes, hey, have you thought about putting the band back together? And I'm like, I know, Frank, I don't want to do it, right? And he goes, come on, what would it take? What would it take? And I said, a lot of money, Frank. And he goes, how much money? And so he put me on the spot, so I just came up with a figure I thought was outrageous, so I just quoted it to him. And he goes, okay. And I went, you got to be kidding me. You're agreeing to that? And he goes, yeah, we'll set it up. I'll come and talk to you in a couple of days, blah, blah, blah. And he takes off. And I was like, holy shit. And so I was the only one involved at that moment. And he had agreed to this big payday. So I decided I was going to buy the master tapes back from Less Art More Pop and give everybody in the band an enormous payday to do this one show. And I called Larry and Dove, and of course they were into it. And then I can't remember why it was on Facebook. One of us posted something on Facebook, and Steve Loree immediately said, hey, if you don't got a guitar player yet, I wouldn't mind trying out. And I went, yeah, Steve would actually be an ideal guy for this. And so that's how we put it. That's how we put it back together. We started rehearsing 8 or 9 months before the reunion show actually happened. and we rehearsed a lot
Yeah.
because we were really rusty.
Yeah, I mean, were those songs still in your head, or were you having to go back and listen to the albums?
We had it's funny, our first practice, I had the foresight. I brought the CDs with me.
Yeah.
And so what do you guys want to do? And we stood there like idiots, like we couldn't think of one song that we knew because it had been so long, right?
Yeah.
But I had the CDs. I said I brought the CDs, so we would look at the CDs and go, okay, let's try this one. I think it was Simple Little Wish. We started at the top and tried to work our way through, and it was a pretty hilarious, clumsy practice.
And you went at it for like 9 months before the first show. What was the first show?
We played a 3-hour set. We did everything
Holy
in
shit.
one big set, and 600 people came.
Wow. In Edmonton.
Yeah, yeah. We rented a space outside of town, so it was a bit of a chore to get there. But 600 people came, and we got Carolyn Mark to open for us.
Nice. She's got a history with the band too, right? Was she on some of the records, or?
I think she played a little piano on Simple Little Wish, but we've been pals forever. I mean, when last time we played in Vancouver, her and Ford were actually in our band that night.
She's got such a unique charm about her.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Larger than life character.
Absolutely. So was the plan like, we're just going to do this one show, make the money, buy the tapes back, and resume our lives? Or did something happen during the process where you thought like, we could fucking do this again?
We thought it was a one show, but we started getting phone calls right away. Brent Oliver in town, because this was the end of May. Canada Day was coming up, and he was booking bands for all these various Canada Day events. So he was feeling us out to see if we'd be into that. And then Six Shooter was still doing the Interstellar Rodeo,
mm-hmm.
and they contacted us about possibly doing the rodeo in July, and we ended up taking that one. We were surprised to get the gig offer, and we figured the Interstellar Rodeo would be a bit funner than the Canada Day show. Canada Day was playing on the Ledge Grounds or something. So we did the Interstellar Rodeo show, and then we started getting other calls. And then Brent hooked us up with Packin' Entertainment, and for a few months they got us some really decent shows. We played at the Dauphin Country Fest a couple times.
What a disgusting display of humanity it is there sometimes.
It was weird. The bro country people didn't know what to think of us, man. It was kind of funny playing to them. And both times we played there, it was like this biblical torrential downpour, like water everywhere.
Oh no.
But we were just the token country punk band playing one of the fucking side stages, and
yeah,
you know, all the belt buckle guys and their Daisy Duke short girlfriends were like, who the fuck? I've never heard these songs before.
So then was it like, okay, we're back together, we're going to start rolling again, or what was the you know, the mindset amongst the members of the group?
Well, things started to continue to go, and so we're getting paid a little bit more than starting out bands are these days. Well, people were offering us decent money to play for once. So we were like, fuck, this is cool. This is better than the old days, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
that kind of thing. And so Steve has more of a business head. He started to put two and two together and try to be a little more strategic with how we were going about things. And then the whole idea was, once we decided that we're making a record, that sort of became our direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so Steve figured we needed to have our shit together as best as we can. So he takes care of our business interests because he's got the energy for it and the ideas, and he seems to have more of a business head than I do.
Yeah, the greater artistic minds seem to not be so keen on the business side of things sometimes. I find, you know.
Yeah, no. If you need CDs given away for free, I'm your dude.
Exactly. Yeah, you need a guy like Steve to rein it all in, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, and he's doing a good job. We're not everything's under control. Like when we were with Stony Plain, we were pulling records out of his basement to sell on the road without even thinking about it. We ended up in pretty serious debt to them. So Steve's got a level head, and he's making sure we're not falling into a hole like that.
The record comes out on November 12th, and I know it's hard to predict with pandemic stuff. But is there release shows being booked? Is there a tour coming behind the album?
Well, we're not sure what the future is going to hold, but I can tell you that on November 20th we're doing a record release show at the Starlight Room in Edmonton, and if you can't attend in Edmonton, it's also going to be broadcast on the internet. You can buy a ticket for $10 to see the show. And there'll be information up on Facebook and all the various socials about it, more details. And also there's Acclaimed Magazine's going to have an ad about it. And there's a contest to win tickets at Acclaimed Magazine as well.
And maybe next year you guys will be able to get out of Alberta and do some dates across the country?
Yeah, that's the plan. That for we want to do that because it'll be fun, and also it's we got this CD to sell now. We're not just a reunion band anymore. We're back to being relevant.
Yeah, you're active. Before I get you out of here, I read a story on your website about an early gig in high school of yours, and how the Queen City kids are, quote, somewhat responsible for your life.
Yeah, it's a great story. They had this thing at our high school called Rock Week. They'd never done it before. And if you were a band inside the high school, they wanted you to play at lunch hour in the gymnasium. Well, we had our punk band, Joey did in the Necrophiliacs. But we didn't get along with the kids on the student union, and the student union was in charge of this event. So we went to sign up for this, and they took one look at us as we came in, and they said, no, you guys can't. And we said, you have to. We're a band inside the school. We fit the rules. So they set it up so that a teacher had to actually come and audition. We had to audition for a teacher. They didn't believe we had a band because they hated our guts, right? Yeah. And we didn't do anything to make them like us either. We hated their guts too. But so the teacher comes to Ed's basement where we practiced, and we did a couple of Ramones songs, and he was surprised. We actually were a band. We weren't that great, but we actually were a band that had obviously rehearsed these songs. And he goes, okay, yeah, you guys can play. And so they announced on our day of playing, come hear the punk sounds of Joey Did. And this is 1979, and the word punk was like a swear word, and everybody came and threw their lunch at us, man. It was, our first gig was awful. And plus we were terrible too. Mm-hmm. But so we decided it was such an awful experience. Like I almost got hit in the head by an orange, And so we decided to break up. And so the whole week wraps up on Saturday night with the school dance, and the Queen City kids are the band that are playing. And we go, and we're watching the band, and we're talking to the band after the show. And it was funny in retrospect. The roadies sat there. We helped them wrap the cables and put everything away. It was funny that I realized the roadies were sitting there watching us do all their work for them. Right? Yeah. So we told them about our experience. Yeah, the school hated us, and so we're going to break up. And the bass player and the singer stopped and said, no, you guys, no, you don't break up. Fuck, when the audience ain't into it, you got to play for yourself. And they told us some stories, horror stories of the audience not liking them and stuff. And they just basically were adamant, don't break up because of that, man. Keep it going. And because of that, I had decided inside of myself to keep going. And I was prepared to not do it anymore until I had spoken to the guys in the Queen City Kids. So that's that story.
That's awesome, man. That's great. That's really great. That's a nice way to end it. I really appreciate you taking the time here to talk to me today, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Sean. You take it easy, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Nice to talk to you. Have a good day. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed my chat with Mike McDonald. Big thanks to Mike for taking the time to share his story with us. Listen to Junior Gone Wild wherever you're streaming music for a nominal monthly fee, or better yet, check him out at juniorgonewild.com. For more on Mike, visit his website, mike-mcdonald.com. Follow along with the Northern Report Spotify playlist, where you can hear music from the folks that I've interviewed here on the podcast or covered in the Honky-Tonk Times column. Remember to subscribe, like, follow, share, tell a friend. Better yet, leave us a rating for the Northern Report. Friends, it goes a long way for the show, and I do appreciate you taking a moment of your time to help us out. Our logo was created by Boots Graham of Boots and the Hoots, and music on the show today, courtesy of Sean Burns and Lost Country, The Divorcees, and Skinny Dick. From local legends to regional stars to the cream of the Canadian crop, you'll find it all here on the Northern Report. Thank you for tuning in, folks. We'll chat later.
Hey,
Hey, pal, what do you got for me?
it's not the bottle. It's the reasons why.